Hi, welcome to my channel. Nice to have you here. My name is Reina. I'm a cosplayer and today I'm going to show you how to style the wig for Kagura from Gintama. Let's jump in. I took a base wig, perforated steel strip, polyester wadding, super glue, got to be spiking glue and hairspray, heat gun, scissors and a comb. For the hair clips I took a styrofoam sphere, 2 and 3mm EVA foam, heat gun, glue gun, Dremel, box cutter, nail file and yarn.
And I also used acrylic primer, acrylic paint and acrylic varnish.
In order to style the wig for Kagura, I took the Nami wig by Doki Doki as the base wig, cause I just wanted to make some use of it, and also the color was perfect in my opinion. First of all, I cut off this silicone thing on top, cause I'm not going to need this for styling. Then I clipped away the bangs along with these 2 strands that would frame my face. And then I cut off the rest of the hair. The hair that I left on the weft should have reached the wefts below in order to form the base. And I also kept the hair that I cut off because I'd need it later on. And I also left some hair on the bottom to form the hairline. Then I covered the mannequin head with the plastic bag. It's better to use cling film for this, but I simply didn't have it at the moment and I couldn't resist the urge to start making this wig. I pinned the wig to the mannequin head to make it stretch properly. The wig was quite thick, so I had to thin out the remaining hair with the scissors. Next, I used clear super glue to glue the hairs together in order to form a firm base. I took the perforated steel strip, tried it on a wig and cut off 4 short strips. Then I bent them so they would fit the base and glued them to the base with the super glue. It takes several minutes for the glue to dry, so until it dries you have to hold this steel strip and press it to the wig. I needed to adopt a proper shape to the wig since Kagura's hair is basically styled in 2 buns. For that I took polyester wadding and glued it to the wig with the super glue. I glued a thin layer of polyester wadding to the middle, right where the parting would be. And also to the rim of the wig along the hairline. Then the layer of the wadding got thicker several centimeters away from the parting and the hairline. I used a comb to correct the shape and spread the wadding on the base. I also measured out where the parting was going to be and marked it. I used the heat gun to make it firmer and denser. I measured out where the hair clips were going to be and marked the center of the hair clip with a pin. Then I took the hair that I cut off earlier and glued it to the base with the super glue. For this, I took a small strand of hair and cut it so the base of the strand would be straight. Then I put glue on the wig starting from the parting and moving towards the pins. I spread the glue so it would be like a centimeter wide and put a strand of hair on the glue. Then I pressed the hairs to the base so it would stick better. I kept gluing hair to the base the same way, starting from the top and moving towards the bottom along the parting. It's just the first layer of hair, it has gaps, so I was going to add a second layer on top to hide these gaps after I finished the first layer. After making the parting, I started gluing hair to the rest of the base. I tried not to put glue on the hair along the rim, cause the hairline might have become too stiff, and because of that it would not look natural. The strands should end at the pinpoint, and if they were longer, I simply cut off the extra end. The strands on the top part of the wig should reach the bangs, so there would be no gaps between the glued hair and the bangs. If you do this kind of styling, you should take a long wig. The strands that I used seemed to be the perfect length, but they actually weren't. Some of the hairs were way too short, so they were sticking out of the wig, and I had to fix them with the got-to-be hairspray. After finishing the first layer, as promised, I started gluing the second layer to cover up those gaps. After I finished with the base, it was time to style the bangs, and I decided to do it the hard way. I used the super glue. But before that, I wanted to add some more volume to the bangs, so I decided to crimp the inner layer of hair. For this, I clipped away the outer layer of hair, and I used crimping tool on the top part of the strands. Didn't help much, but I tried. I tried this wig on to see how long the bangs should have been. Then I clipped away the outer layer of hair, leaving just several strands of the inner layer, and started cutting it strand by strand while styling it into spikes with the super glue. I used super glue on top part of the strand only, and I used got-to-be hairspray to stick the ends together. If you use super glue on the ends, the chunks of super glue might be too noticeable there. Then I took several wefts from the top and glued the new layer of hair on top of those spikes that I made earlier. After gluing them, I trimmed the ends with the scissors. And I also added several new spikes to make the bangs look thicker. Then I used got-to-be hairspray to glue the ends together. And I also trimmed the spikes so the hairs would not be sticking out. Next I took the outer layer of hair and glued it to the bangs. Then I split the hairs so they would lay on top of the spikes and trimmed them with the scissors. Then I used got-to-be hairspray to glue the ends together. As you can see, there was an obvious gap between the glued hair and the bangs, and you can also see the base of the wefts there. So I glued the hairs on top of the bangs to form this parting between the bangs and the base of the wig. After I made the wig itself, it was time to make the hair clips. I took a styrofoam sphere that was 8 cm in diameter and cut it in half. Then I cut out 2 square pieces out of 2 mm EVA foam. I was gonna use those to cover the hemispheres, so I heated them up with the heat gun and stretched them on the hemisphere. This process took some time. I glued the EVA foam to the tip of the hemisphere with the hot glue. And immediately after putting the EVA foam on the tip, I thoroughly pressed the foam to the hemisphere and stretched it while the glue was hot. After the hot glue cooled down, I took the heat gun and stretched the free EVA foam even further. Then I glued the EVA foam to the rest of the styrofoam hemisphere with the hot glue. After the glue dried and cooled down, I cut off the free EVA foam with the box cutter. Even though I put my best efforts into stretching the EVA foam on the hemisphere, it still ended up folded on the margin. I cut off the big folds with the box cutter and I'd fix the margin with the Dremel later on. Next I had to make this curled pattern for the hemispheres, and first of all I needed a template. I cut a 1 cm wide paper strip and tried it onto a hemisphere. This way I measured out the length of the margin, or basically the circumference of the hemisphere. Then I checked how big the curls should have been and simply drew the curl on paper and cut out the template. I tried this template on the hemisphere and I didn't like the way it looked. So I decided to make a new template for the curl that was wider than the first one. I made 3 copies of this curl and spread them evenly across the strip. Then I attached the curls to the paper strip with the Scotch tape. Put this template onto the 3mm EVA foam and transferred the pattern onto EVA foam. By the way, I used small pieces of Scotch tape to fix the template on the EVA foam so it didn't move. Then I used box cutter to cut out the pattern. By the way, the blade needs to be super sharp, so it would be better if you sharpen the blade with the sandpaper from time to time. Next I cut out the second pattern out of 3mm thick EVA foam. And don't forget that the patterns should be mirrored. Then I used Dremel to make the rounded bevels. It could be tricky to sand the bevels along the sharp angles between the strip and the curls. You should bend the curl at the base to get it out of the way and sand the strip like this, and vice versa. Also use tweezers to hold the curls while you're sanding them with Dremel so you don't hurt your fingers. And if you're working with a Dremel, use the vacuum if you don't want to be covered in dust. You should either place a tube of a vacuum cleaner as close to your working area as possible, or use a nail dust vacuum as I do. After finishing the pattern, I also sanded the hemispheres. In order to smooth the EVA foam after Dremel, I also sanded both hemisphere and the pattern with the nail file. There was a rather big seam on each hemisphere, so I had to place the curl on it to hide it. Then I glued the pattern to the hemisphere with the hot glue. I used this rubber spatula to get rid of the excess glue. Next it was time for priming and painting. I primed both hair clips with the white acrylic primer. After priming the hair clips in 2 layers of primer, I used the nail file to get rid of the bumps. Then I put several more layers of the primer on the hair clips and filed them again to make them as smooth as possible. And then I primed them again. You have to wait for at least 20 minutes between each layer of primer to let it dry properly. Next I painted the pattern with the yellow acrylic paint. And I painted the rest of the hair clip in black. After painting, I put several layers of glossy acrylic varnish on the hair clips. Next is my favorite step because it doesn't involve dust or painting. And it's the tassels! They're cute, aren't they? For this I cut a cardboard strip that was 7 cm wide so the tassel would be slightly longer than the hair clip. I had to reel the yarn around the strip 25 times so the tassel would have 50 threads in it. Then I took a thread, tied it around the base and cut the yarn on the opposite end. Next, I took another thread and tied it up around the tassel so that one end of the thread would be way longer than the other one. I made a loop out of the short end and winded the long end around the tassel several times. Then I winded the end around the loop and tied the knot. In order to hide the thread, I put a needle into the tassel, put the thread through the needle, and dragged the needle through the tassel. Then I cut the thread to level it with the rest of the tassel. The base of the hair clip was flat, so I needed to make a notch so the hair clip would fit the wig. Actually, the notch ended up way deeper than it's shown on the video. You'll have to just try the hair clip on the wig to make sure that it fits. So I took a huge needle and pierced a hole on top of the hair clip. Then I put the threads on the needle and dragged the threads through the hair clip with the needle. I glued the thread to the hair clip on the inside with the hot glue and cut off the extra end. At last, I glued the hair clip to the wig with the hot glue. I wanted to make a few extra adjustments to make the styling more secure. Some hairs were sticking out of the parting, so I used got-to-be spiking glue to fix them to the wig. Then I put styling foam on the wig and sprayed got-to-be hairspray to make the styling as secure as possible. I also slightly trimmed the hairline of the bottom to even it up. The strands that framed the face were too long, so I trimmed them with the scissors. And I also used got-to-be spiking glue to stick the ends together. It's beneficial to try this wig on at all steps of the styling process. This way you'll make sure that the base fits you, that the hairline is covering your hairline, and also that the bangs are of the proper length. Leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to my channel if you like cosplay, and I hope to see you in my next video. Have a nice day! Bye!